There's a few other points here that I've been studying, though, that I want to talk about at some point here, having to do with what they call spellcraft and the magic circle I talked about. It's all intriguing, and I think it's worth studying because it's inculcated into all of the movies. All this occult stuff, mumbo jumbo, symbols, it's pervasive. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, it's Gematria 101.
Hey, what's up, Gematria 101? Always great comments from you, by the way. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, I just don't think that it's good when someone calls in and then people kind of want to rag on them because I think that will make other people less likely to call in, even if they didn't have good points.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we should be polite to callers, and we have a peanut gallery here, but you never know what someone has. And one of the reasons I have this open platform is we know we can't trust centralized sources of news, and every person is an observer. So I'll take anybody's call because they may have something, a piece to the puzzle. So it's like I don't like to dismiss
Well,
anybody.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I have all types of topics that I could kind of go over, but you were talking about like a circle and a spell earlier.
Oh yes, yes.
So, so like the English language, if you actually put it in a circle from A to Z in a circle, and you remove all of the vertically symmetrical letters. So like that would be A, M, O, because they're mirrors from left to right. When you do that, you end up with groups of letters that are left over. You end up with 3, 1, 4, 1, and 6, which is pi, which is a line across a circle. That's how
Interesting.
figure out the circumference of the circle. It's 3.1416 times that line. So we're told that pi is 3.14 or 3.141, but true pi is actually 3.144. And there are 3,144 counties in the United States. The Gregorian calendar started October 4th. They actually skipped 10 days. So the Gregorian calendar starts on October 15th, 1582. So if you actually didn't jump those 10 days and you go 441 years and 3 days, which is true pi reversed, it's actually October 7th, 2023, which was the day of the Israeli conflict.
Okay,
So they're
go on, go on. This is
they're
intriguing.
they're they're symbolically using that circle that you were talking about in ways that we don't quite understand. And the two biggest events, at least in modern history, would be 3/11 and 9/11. So if you were to take a circular calendar, which that's actually what a calendar is a big circle, even though we're trained to read a calendar from left to right and then go down a row left to right, just like we read letters from left to right. But on the other side of the world, they do the mirror of that. So when you put 3/11 and 9/11, when you mark those on a circular calendar and you go from one to the other, you have a straight line across a circle, which once again is representing pi. On a calendar or even on a clock, the hour hands would be 180 degrees away from each other. And it's kind of interesting because your name's Tim Osmond. My birthday is 3/10, which is actually Bin Laden's birthday,
Oh,
and
really?
you almost have the real Bin Laden's name, right? So I don't think that's a coincidence either, because they literally strategically gave that character the birth date and then had him pull the event basically 180 degrees from the event he supposedly pulled off.
Oh, okay, okay. Now that's intriguing. So what do you make of, okay, 9/11 happens, 33-year-old Mohammed Atta attacks. He's the lead hijacker. 90 days prior was 6/11. 6/11, 33-year-old Timothy McVeigh was just executed. and he's the domestic equivalent to an Osama bin Laden. So you have 611, the American Osama, 9/11 Osama Association. So the 311, 9/11, 6/11, these are all really interesting because they're all, of course,
And
spaced out accordingly.
it kind of doesn't stop there, because when you actually take the golden ratio 1.618, you round it up a little bit. When you convert that to days, it's 162 days. 611 is the 162nd day, depending on whether it's a leap year or not. You're basically right there. So we have 311, 611, 911, and then if you go to 1211, 1211 is Human Rights Day, which once again is just mockery in our face, because that was strategically done, because it lands on this plus sign that fits perfectly over a circle. And 1211 is the 345th day of the year, which would represent mathematically a 3-4-5 triangle, which is how you find square. So on the Freemason compass and square, you have the square, which you find the square with the 345 or 3-4-5 triangle, and then 180 degrees from that, you have the 162nd day, which is shown with the compass, because that's representing the degrees where it would land, because the golden ratio basically, that's what governs like our entire reality. Basically pi, the golden ratio, phi. So like phi, you have 1.618, and then you have lowercase phi or phi, which is 0.618. So it's the same number, it's just missing the one in front of it. Phi, 1.618 with a capital P, and phi with a lowercase p, hi, 0.618. Those are the ratios of a 5-pointed star. That's why we have stars on our flag, and that's why the country was founded in Phi, ladel, Phi,
So what does it say to you? When you're looking, so I'm looking here at a video that shows the hidden pi, and then we look at the calendars, and we look at the significance of dates to these events and birth dates of celebrities like Jurassic Liars. Garrow's pointed out a million examples of this. So clearly, it would seem to me, and maybe you agree, that at the top of the pyramid, the metascriptors are all operating with the same framework and the same ciphers, the same code. And in some way, they're all these scripts are aligned with the astrotheological template, but it seems like even our language itself could even be a quote magical. Well, I mean, it kind of is. If you look at the origin of letters and in like runic scripts, and you can find examples of where, yeah, or even in the Kabbalah, the assumed magical significance of letters. So it's like this is the source code we're talking about, the source code of reality from that perspective. But I mean, what do you think? Do you think this is all the result of, as I would say, man using these models and templates to encode meaning, or do you think there might be an interface with something higher, as others will say?
So I think it all comes down to like really like natural law, like I was just saying, and these certain degrees and ratios that like everything is based off of. So on the back of a dollar bill, you have the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. That pyramid, if you actually divide that up into quarters, and it has a total of 36 rows, the all-seeing eye at the top would be the first 9. The bottom row would be the 36th row. I mean, it keeps going infinitely, but like just, it would basically be like the 9 would be a quantum of the 36. The 36 would be a quantum of the 72. The 72 would be a quantum of the 144. So basically you end up with a triangle with 36 rows. It's divided into 9 sections. Our language is supposed to have 27 letters because it's 3 times 3 times 3. That's why Hebrew has a total of 27 letters, 22, and then you basically have consonants, and then vowels are used like in secondary ways. So you end up with like a total of 27. All of that basically breaks down to like triangular math. That's why there's a big deal with like Q, because when you go to the 17th row, the triangular number is 153. When you go to the 26th row, which would be our whole alphabet, or Z, it's 351. 153, 351, those are mirrors of each other. And just to like talk about the significance of triangular math, 351, which is our whole alphabet. I live in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has 351 cities and towns. The zip code, I'm actually in the first town alphabetically in the entire state. The zip code ends in 351. The area code 351 is in Massachusetts.
Okay, now
The
go on, because this is consistent. Then it reminds me of what Garrow does with how he looks into even the zip codes and the names of
It's all
places.
designed.
hmm Well,
You know,
and one more point here,
it's all designed from day one.
because one of the things that's consistent with magic ritual in the Western occult traditions is the ritual performance. It's a theater performance. It's pageantry, but it's all encoded. The numbers,
Yep.
the time, the color, the words they use, the numbers that the words add up to. It's all super encoded, and their belief is that the spell's power is the result of how concentrated the message is. This goes on like the theory behind sigil magic. So the more meaning you can encode into something, the more powerful or more weight it has when it comes to having an effect. That's why I say I think the universe is made out of information and meaning, and that the perception slash experience of it is the co-creative process, or at least where our input comes in. And I think that's at least how it's explained in these various magical philosophies. But the idea here, of course, is that there is a belief in the intrinsic power of encoding meaning into things, including the dates and the time and everything.
Yeah, for sure. Something that I just learned not too long ago. So the supposed name Delaware, that came from, I believe, somebody's name. But the word del is basically when you're figuring out, say you're trying to figure out like the corner of a triangle and like the distance of 3 points. That's actually what Del is. So, I mean, if you just look at the first state, because Delaware was the first state in the country, I mean, just the name alone, it's like Delaware. Like, are you aware of Del? I mean, it's like so in your face once you actually start to see it.
It's like a cornerstone.
Even uh, so, Del is basically when you're factoring. Usually, when you do a math equation, you have two numbers that you're working with. But Del is actually when you bring in a third. So it'd be like, distant, height, length,
Okay.
instead of just,
Okay.
9 plus 7 or whatever. So, I mean, the word Del is basically, that's like another level of mathematics
And
that people
speaking,
just
yes.
don't.
Well, and there's this thing with architecture too we should bring up, because we talk about secret societies and Freemasons. The reason they're called Freemasons is that they used stonework and cathedral building as an analogy for building character, building a perfect society, building or developing spiritually. It's all analogy, but they use the terminology of masonry. So it's like square, the plumb, the compass, and these things are all just symbols they use. But it's a pretty clear thing that within predictive programming you have both the written stuff, the movies, the stories, but you also have architecture and architecture, monuments, the layout of cities. So this is all just part of what is done
Yeah,
here as part of the bigger.
to the right
Yeah.
to the right person that's aware of math on these different levels, they could literally look at like how a town is laid out, and they could perceive a message from that another person would think is completely insane because they're not aware of that level of math. Just like how 311, in base 8 counting, 311 is 201. And then we got like the moon landing on the 201st day, event 201. The original pandemic was on the first confirmed case of the Spanish flu was on 311, and it was 102 years prior, which is just 201 in reverse. And the reason, getting back to the letters, the reason why they use 102 and 201 is because in the Hebrew language, the mirroring of 153 and 351 in English, their mirror point is 102 and 201. And originally, the Hebrew letters, a Hebrew letter is basically a flame that is being observed from 11 different points. And it's that vantage point of that shape, but from a different dimension. So it's like the symbolism in letters has been there forever. And like in English, we basically have our letters are in the design of when you square a circle, which if you're going to find pi, because technically pi is like an irrational number that you can't quite put your finger on, the way that you find the straight line across a circle is by putting a square inside it and then putting multiple squares and different shapes within that to actually find the center point of the circle. And every single letter of the alphabet lines up with those cross sections to get to pi. And the only letter that doesn't line up or has an extra line in it that's not in that equation is the letter Q, because it's giving you a clue that Q is the reflection point of English. And that's why P and Q, which are next to each other in the alphabet, are mirrors of each other.
Fascinating.